Welcome, everyone, to this Berks Alliance Spotlight program on the Pagoda, important community asset, and we're going to learn a lot about it today. I want to introduce John Weidenhammer, who is the chair of the Berks Alliance, for some brief comments and brief welcomes, and then we'll come back and explain what we're going to be doing and how we're doing it. John.
Thanks, Dave. Good afternoon, everybody. And thanks to Dave for organizing these spotlight presentations. He really does a great job of putting these programs together. We try to do this monthly as the Berks Alliance. Also, I want to thank our presenters today. They've made an investment in trying to provide you with an update regarding the Pagoda. And this is such an interesting topic because as a lifelong resident of the Reading area, I've been looking up to the top of Mount Penn my entire life and seeing that Pagoda. And it's interesting that it's been really a fixture my whole life. And I think it'll be fascinating for everybody to learn a little bit more, not only about the history, but really the future of the Pagoda, which is primarily what we want to talk about. And I'll just remind everybody that the Berks Alliance is a community development organization. We have a focus on primarily trying to improve the health, wealth, and education attainment of our community. And these programs, we think, are a great way for us to get our messaging out and to make sure that topics that are important to all of you are something that we talk about. So if there's something that is of interest, you think, to the community, please share that out with Dave or with me, and we'll try to organize a program around that. So with that, Dave, back to you. Thanks so much.
Great. Thank you, John. This is going to be a very interesting topic. We've got a lot of information to share with you. We have 4 presenters who are going to go through the various elements of the project and explain to you what they're working on from the Pagoda Foundation. We ask that you use the chat function to submit your questions and comments, and I would really strongly encourage you to do that because I think we have so much information in this session, we might not get to all the questions that we would normally get to in one of these functions. So please use the chat function, submit your questions. We will share them with the Pagoda Foundation when we get done. And hopefully we're going to learn a lot about this incredible legacy. 2 years ago, the foundation began the process of assessing the needs for updates and improvements to the Pagoda. We're now going to learn today where things stand, where the future is, what's the future of the Pagoda, what it means for Reading as we move forward. We have, as I said, 4 people who are going to be doing the presentations, and I'm going to introduce them here at the beginning. Marcia Goodman-Hintersnitz is the foundation president. She is a current and soon-to-be former member of City Council. Looking forward to that, I guess, Marcia, maybe. I don't know. She works for the Council of Chemical Abuse as Prevention Program Manager. She served on various local and state boards and is an ardent advocate for the city of Reading and its people. Robin Neff is the Senior Project Manager and Office Manager at STV Incorporated in Douglasville. She's a professional engineer with a degree in civil engineering and a certified project manager. Jim Boisseau, hopefully I didn't mess it up too bad, Jim.
Perfect.
Has 39 years of experience providing structural engineering services for a variety of clients. He provides all phases of construction administration, such as preparing field inspections, attending meetings, providing quality control, looking at the shop drawings, answering field questions. He's got a lot to share with us today. And Mike Reinert from WFMZ is also on the Pagoda board and is going to be sharing some thoughts about the future of the Pagoda and what it can be used for. So with that, I'm going to start. I'm sorry, I'm multitasking here, so I've got to.
Okay, so I am, first of all, thankful for, on behalf of the Foundation for the Reading Pagoda, I am thankful that the Berks Alliance has given us this time. It's very timely at this point because the foundation is ready to work together with the city of Reading to launch a capital campaign so we can work together as partners in this community to ensure the restoration of the Reading Pagoda. The picture that you see on the screen speaks to what the pagoda looked like when it was originally sited in 1905 on top of Mount Penn. So just a little history, first of all, and I know all of us hold near and dear the Reading Pagoda as one of our community's icons, not only for the city of Reading, for Berks County and beyond, but I think it's good to have a little snapshot of how this unusual, unique structure was sited on Mount Penn. So the Japanese pagoda atop Mount Penn, east of the city of Reading, was initiated in 1905 by a local politician, William Abbott Whitman. The building was designed to cover a scar that the quarrying of stone, which Mr. Whitman had caused. Mr. Whitman was wanting to be the mayor of the city, and he wanted to address this problem. The pagoda was completed in 1908 and was intended to be a summer resort for Mr. Whitman. It was constructed at a cost of $50,000. Due to the inaccessibility of the site and the failure to obtain a liquor license, Mr. Whitman sold the property to Jonathan Mould in 1910, and Mr. Mould sold the property to the city of Reading the following year for $1. So since 1911, the city of Reading has owned the pagoda and its current owner. Instrumental in the building of the pagoda were Charles Matz and his father James, who designed the pagoda, and Mr. William Stout, who supervised the construction. The pagoda, architecturally speaking, is not a pagoda, but a Japanese battle castle. It was reproduced from the castle in Nagoya, Japan. The castle in Japan was owned and operated by the shogun. Interestingly enough, in my research, I'm finding that in Japan now, they're in the process of restoring their pagoda. So it's interesting that we're on the same bandwidth with them. They're also looking at a capital campaign.
They only have one pagoda.
Actually, and I can share with you at a later time, we'll put on the Pagoda Foundation website, what the different variations are of the structure of the pagoda. The structure is significant because it represents a reproduction brought from another land at another time and is situated in rural Pennsylvania. It is one of the few pieces of Oriental architecture in the state and is significant for its interesting variations on the Oriental model. It remains unique in that it is an early 20th century adaptation for use as a hotel. It is also of import in that the authentic Japanese bell or gong that hangs at the top of the pagoda came from a Japanese temple. The gong, which is an enclosed observation area on the top level, was cast in 1739 in Obama, Japan, and the gong was placed in a Buddhist temple until it was brought to America in 1908, specifically for the pagoda. The building is also adorned with numerous lights and Oriental artifacts, including the koi fish on the top, which you don't see in this original picture, but were later added. So that's just a background, and there's much more detail, much more information that we will be posting information pieces on the Reading Pagoda website. So if you want to do a deeper dive into the history of the building. What's significant, though, is that it's gone through many needs for restoration over the years. And also at one point, the pagoda in 1970 had a significant fire. At that point, there was talks about demolishing the building. And when that happened, the Pagoda Skyline Group was formed. They were instrumental in the first savior of the pagoda. And so there's been many times along the line. This isn't the first time that this building's needed a lot of tender love and care. We're at a tipping point now. And I wanted to turn this over now to Donna Reed, who serves on the foundation as president of Reading City Council, so she can talk about the most recent restoration and the efforts to create the foundation. Donna?
Good afternoon, everyone. And just follow up quickly on Marcia, because I know our time is limited. We did do a restoration in 2008 for the centennial. It was significant in that we replaced some lights, replaced some interior utilities. it could have gone further. We probably should have invested, but could have, would have, should have is everyone as we look at things. As the city of Reading, at that point, we were getting close to entering Act 47. We were trying to parse our funds, and that may have been part of the reason we weren't able to put as much capital into the pagoda at that point. However, what we did do certainly preserved it and saved it to bring us to this point to add more to it. It was around that time the pagoda started as a task force, and then it eventually became the foundation for city ordinance. And we have had our ups and downs going forward, but we are now in much better shape than we ever were. Our Pagoda Pennies initiative back in 2004 gave us some seed money. That seed money has expanded. We now have our funds unable to be touched politically, which had occurred in the past. Those funds are now with the Berks County Community Foundation safe and sound. So what we're looking at this time is we're looking at infusion of public monies, ARPA monies into this. We want this to be a signature capital improvement to the pagoda, one that will last for many years and that will reshape the future of the pagoda. Marcia, is there anything I missed here?
No, but just to set a background for our next set of presenters, the city of Reading did commit to 2 studies that were significant in that we needed to know what restoration needed to occur both on the exterior and on the inside. And those studies, which you'll be hearing from in a few minutes, will give you a sense of how we need to move forward. So I'll turn it back to Dave.
Okay. Wanted to put this picture up for people to take a look at it, the walls actually being created. And now we're going to move on to Jim.
Oh, thank you, Dave. As Dave mentioned, I'm Jim Boisseau. I'm a structural engineer and project manager with JMT in Hunt Valley, Maryland. This has been a exciting project for us. Part of the reason is it's a very large project, as Marcia mentioned. The overall site on the pagoda is almost 10 acres, a top mount pen. And Dave, if you could pull up that first slide on the overall project site, we can get a feel for just how large this site is.
I think that's the one that's up now.
Oh, okay. I have the other.
You want me to go?
I still see the
This one?
postcard.
I see the postcard, not the overall project site, Dave.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yes,
Let me figure out what I'm doing here.
no worries. So as Dave's hunting for that, we're tasked with, oh, there we go. It's the one right before that, Dave.
Okay.
Thank you. Perfect.
Yep. We'll get our act together here.
All right. So what we're focusing on here is the exterior around the pagoda and the surrounding walls. As Marcia said, the original pagoda was built in 1905, 1908. And of course, back in that time, they did not have the construction materials and the technology that we have available today. So when we're talking about the site, we're talking about large retaining walls, the overall stability of the site. And while that's important, is with the stability of the site comes the stability of the pagoda, stability of roadways, safety, and the overall, I'll use the word code compliance of the site to allow access to the site. So what we're seeing here in this slide is part of what we've been asked to do is to also maintain the construction site, allowing a maintenance of traffic through the site for the contractors, as well as providing access around the site without impacting the overall maneuverability at the top mount pen. So we'd be looking likely about a 2-year construction time frame to do our work around the Pagoda site. So we have some road closures, maintenance of traffic for construction vehicles, warning signs, and also maintenance of traffic and closing off the walkways. And the reason for this is when we start rehabilitating the site, as we'll see later in a few more slides, we'll be moving large materials around, for the restoration of the walls, the stabilization of the walls, and stabilization of the terraces, walkways, and bringing the site back up to code. So our limits of work are really focused within those red areas that we see, and we'll be starting here. Perfect, Dave. Thank you. So now we're drilling down more into the actual Pagoda site itself. In general terms, we have a number of walls, walls 1 through 5. And it's interesting there, and each one of those walls is constructed differently and constructed in a different time frame. As we were just remembered from the postcard, the walls right at the terrace that provide the stability for the terrace and around the pagoda, and also part of Skyline Drive, were built back in 1908. Now, why that's important is back in the day, the construction procedures and the construction means and methods provided for a dry laid stone wall, meaning each stone wall is not mortared together, but they're pinned, and there's space between them. So we're approaching here on that dry laid stone almost 115 years of exposure to weather, water, drainage, traffic loads on the terrace. So time, of course, has an effect on the condition of those stone walls. Each one of those stone walls, as I mentioned, is in different degrees of damage. Some moderate that can be repaired and restored with cosmetic procedures. Others are failing, and they're showing signs of lateral movement that would affect the stability of the site itself. Also in our site, we're repairing the stairs. Stairs were originally constructed back in the 1970s, and the chemistry involved with the placement of concrete back in the 70s, again, is not what it's up to today. Some of the stairs show, again, varying signs of damage. We've actually had to close down the stairs that lead from the terrace down to the trail. They've become a travel hazard. They would not meet current codes for safety. And also the terrace railings also would not be current safety codes for fall protection. The walls vary in anywhere from height, I'm sure we've all seen it, anywhere from a few feet up to almost 30 feet. We want to make sure that the visitors who experience Pagoda have a happy and safe visit so they can enjoy the trails. If we each one of those stone walls again show different signs of damage. The one photograph in the lower left-hand corner that we're visualizing, here's a complete failure of that dry laid stone wall constructed back in 1908. It's failed to the point where the upper terrace now is unsupported, again creating a failure mechanism from a structural standpoint of view that we want to take and correct. The other photograph that we see here in the upper left, that's the stairs leading from the terrace down to the Pagoda Trail. And again, we see stairways that have completely eroded, providing tripping hazards. The railings have been deteriorated and collapsed, again not offering any type of protection for travelers from the terrace down to the trail. The one photograph is we see here in the right hand side, again I mentioned there's different conditions along these stone walls. This is one of the stone walls that was built back in the 1970s from a addition where the overlook was constructed. And again, here we're seeing some mold, some exposure to the environment. But again, that's not to the extent of the damage of the dry laid stone walls. There's some changes in the mortars. So here, this next slide is, as Marcia mentioned, we're also in the process of preparing construction documents. So this is a CAD generated condition of the stone wall, and we'll notice that on the one side is the overlook of the existing fascia. It was interesting to note when we did our inspections that the existing stone facing there and the right in the middle between our piers was attempted to be repaired, but the repair was not followed through all the way from the overlook to the end of the wall. And this was part of that original 1908 stone gravity laid wall where it's showing extensive damage, bowing, movement of stones that will eventually lead to that failure that we just saw in the previous slide. So when we go to our next slides, here we're seeing some of the damage in the stairways. Also, non-code compliant railings. They create pinch points. They're easily compromised with open rails. The photograph to the right there shows the failure of the railing, failure of the stairs, also the failures of the walls. So part of our restoration process in our drawings that we're preparing, as we see in the next slides, will be removing those failed stone walls, and this is a plan for stabilization of these of the failing walls and the failing terraces. It is important to reinstate the lateral stability. One of the assets we have is we're able to take advantage of the existing bedrock. And while that's an advantage, is it allows us to seat a minimally constructed footing into the bedrock and use that as a key. And then we can also come back up at the top and place in tiebacks and a new concrete wall. And then once we put in the new concrete wall, we can place stone that we can either salvage from our stone that we take off during the demolition project process, or we can manufacture and quarry new stone that matches the existing conditions, so we maintain the historic nature of the site walls, which is one of the goals of our whole restoration process, to keep the intent of the historic nature of the stone walls, with the exception of these stone walls built back in 1908 and some of them built back in the 1970s. There's evidence that the walls were also restored and built back in 1935 as part of Roosevelt's New Deal program. And those walls also would be treated historic in nature. So that was my thoughts on the overall project site.
Okay, and we'll move on to Robin. Let me pull that up.
Dave, before we move on, do we want to try, maybe Jim can answer the one question that came up about the tiebacks? Or do
Sure.
we want the end? For
Sure, if I can see it.
Let me get the right thing up here.
Sure.
The question was, is there any risk or danger of the tiebacks rusting over time and causing damage to the wall?
Tiebacks are either threaded in stainless steel or a hot dip galvanized process. So the life of the tiebacks usually exceed 100 years. We also use them in marine structures we're exposed to salt and brackish water. The advantage of the tiebacks also is they're encased in a grout, an epoxy grout, and that epoxy grout also has a corrosion inhibitor admixture to it. So that corrosion inhibiting admixture actually preserves and keeps the corrosion arrested. One of the advantages, I didn't mention, one of the advantages of the tiebacks and locking it into the foundation in the stone is that mechanism provides for a very minimally invasive excavation behind the wall. If we had to have a larger footing, we have to take and lay back the excavation or provide some type of sheeted and shoring. With the foundation being locked into the stone and the use of tiebacks, it minimalizes the excavation during construction.
A couple of quick questions, if I can, that surfaced. So the idea is to not have the walls be entirely stone, but have a concrete back with the stone facing. Is that right?
That is at the dry laid stone walls, which are the stones built back in 1908. Those stone walls, again, if we go back to that one photograph that had the failure at the top of the wall, where those walls are bowing,
That's not the photograph you talked about, but I think
Right. So what happens over time is there's water pressure built up behind the walls. There's additional loads from traffic on the parking area, and all those vertical loads and backfill and water pressures start to provide lateral pressures on the walls, and those lateral pressures start to move the walls outward. Also, over time, Mother Nature erosion takes its course on the walls. Stones fall out, and as stones fall out, it just starts to domino, and more stones to keep falling out. So there's not a homogeneous mechanism that locks all those stones in that were constructed back in 1908. I hope that answers your question.
And I know that there's going to be a lot of questions and they're very in-depth. So I think what will happen is the questions we can't answer today, the foundation will be making sure that we have them answered in writing and posted on our website.
Okay, let me,
I wonder if we should. Oops. Oops.
okay, I'm trying to get there, Robin. Bear with me.
I'm fine. I have it up if you want me to share
Yeah,
my.
if you want to do it, it's probably easier for you to do it. I'll let you share the screen.
Sure. Just get to my, oh, you have it. Or no, that was me. That's me. Sorry. Go ahead and share my screen.
Okay, you should be able to do it.
Okay, great. Share. Y'all just need to let me know when you.
Yep. Looks good.
Great. So let me just do this. That's why. Set me up. This one. All right, very good. So, thanks everyone for joining us today. My name is Robin Neff. I'm with STV Incorporated. We are a architecture and engineering firm out of Douglasville, Berks County, Pennsylvania. And I'm going to be sharing with you what we've already mentioned of having a contract out for AE services, we call them, to do a conditions assessment for the pagoda. This is for the building itself. This is the interior and exterior of the building. Doesn't include what Jim just spoke about. This is just a summary of what our scope of our project is. Again, it's all the inside, it's the mechanical, electrical, plumbing, fire protection, structure of the building that makes it work. That cool little picture up to the upper right is something we did. We did a drone survey and got, basically that's just thousands of pictures from a drone point of view of the entire outside, which is pretty darn cool. As we already mentioned, we all know, I think the pagoda is on the National Register of Historic Places. It's a local icon. My kids are always looking for it whenever we drive past now in Penn for sure. So about a year ago, a little over a year ago, personnel, all our engineers and architects went out to the pagoda. We did an assessment, observations. We did some additional investigations in March of this year and July of this year. Into those just a little more about hazardous materials and structural deficiencies where we weren't quite sure what was going on. So let me start with architecture. So we're going to give you guys a little bit of insight into what the architecture and engineering world is and how we think and how we present things. So first and foremost, architecture from the outside. Some recommendations that we saw, some assessment that we saw, it's dirty. We need to clean it. That's a maintenance thing that should be done on every building, honestly, although people don't kind of think about it sometimes. So cleaning it, getting the graffiti off. There's gouges in the doors and some of the window sills and things. So replacing those or filling them, painting the exterior for sure. And I'm just going to give you highlights of a lot of these. Joint sealants. joint sealants are extremely important on a building for waterproofing purposes. When water gets inside a building, when you don't want it, we've all seen some windows leak and you're like, oh my gosh, now I have this windowsill that's rotted and falling apart. Joint sealants are what save your windowsills and other elements of your inside of your building. So replacing those on a regular basis is highly recommended for your waterproofing. So that's where we observe some things that we take care of on the Pagoda. Typical maintenance type of items. I think I went one too far. Guys. Concrete. If you go out there, you see some called spalling where concrete kind of falls off, similar to what Jim was kind of saying about the rocks kind of falling off. When water gets behind things, they start to spall. We can fix that, and we do recommend that we do that in a few areas. It's not really that bad, but we do think that we have some areas we need to do that. Masonry, kind of similar, patching, spalling, concrete and masonry are in our world a little different. A lot of people call them the same thing in the layman's terms, but some things that we noticed on there. So again, nothing here is a significant issue, but we do need to have some fixes there. Windows, talking about waterproofing. Windows are very important for waterproofing, as you can imagine. Also very important for interior livability. I'll say livability, for nice things to be able to see out the windows. So we did notice some leaks, nothing too significant, but we definitely want to make sure we get those repaired. We are looking at a few exterior casings that were missing. Again, nothing too significant, and definitely repair those sealants. Doors, restoring and refinishing. So this is historic structure, so we definitely want to be mindful of that, and we want to make do everything in the vein that we need to honor the history of this building. So restoring and refinishing is the typical way you want to do it. We're not going to replace a lot. We want to restore and refinish and repair. So we do definitely need some repairs on the doors. The roof, we do not see the need to replace the entire roof. I could be wrong on this, but I think that the roof was replaced in 2008. So we just had a few selective areas where there was some damage that we need to replace, and then some painting that we need to do. Nothing, again, too significant. Probably the first major significant thing we noticed is accessibility. The ground floor, the very basement of the structure has the restrooms. Visited, you've probably been in those restrooms. They're thought the most desirable spaces in the world, to be honest, and they're definitely not accessible. This is a tough site. Jim, you had some visualizations there of these walls, and obviously we're on a hillside. Accessibility is tough, to be able to get a wheelchair or someone who needs some assistance, or stairs are a problem. We don't have an elevator here, so how do we do this? But what we can do in a historic structure is at least we can get something on the ground level here. There could be a larger need to possibly get an accessible entrance with some accessible parking down to the bottom. Not sure how that's all going to work. I'm just throwing out ideas. But we do recommend that we go ahead, and since the restrooms need to be upgraded, we do recommend that they go ahead and be made ADA compliant. Oh, there we go. Sorry about that. Interior finishes. There are some places where there was some interior damage, so we'll replace those in kind. Some clay tiles throughout the flooring. I'm sorry, not clay. Some tiles of flooring that need to be replaced. Heating, interior plating, painting, those kind of things. We are recommending replacement of those. Some other miscellaneous items, the kitchen appliances. This goes, I think I saw earlier a question in the chat about what are we going to do with the Pagoda? And that's a great question. I'd love to have the answer to as a designer, so we can make this what you guys want it to be, but I don't think we know yet. I think that it's still to be determined what we want to do here. So we're going to make it as flexible as possible for that. So replacing the kitchen appliances, if that's a desire to have a kitchen in there, then we would do that. There's some exterior signage that I think we can upgrade and make those a little more desirable. some lighting repairs as well. So that was our architectural piece. Structural is our next discipline I'll go over. You're gonna see a little bit of duplication here, little nuance differences. So exterior repairs that we're looking for structurally would be cracks. Cracks are a big issue with a lot of things. None of these cracks seem to be a structural concern, which means we're not anticipating this is going to fall down. It's not going to fall off the mountain. We feel that it is structurally stable. How the building was built is anchored into that wall or into the rock there. We are not concerned that this is sliding off the wall, the hillside at all. These are typical types of structural repairs for cracks, limestone columns, they crack, falls, those kind of things. Again, nothing serious on the exterior that we saw. A few other areas that we're going to be looking at further as we design. I already mentioned some spalling, but waterproofing. There was one significant kind of, I'll say issue for lack of a better term, where the roof, we all know, kind of slopes and has the staggered, where the water falls off that, it falls right onto that balcony. So there's basically a gouge almost from, you can see the waterfalls and it just gouges right there. It's because there's no gutter system on this building. So what we would be recommending is a waterproof coating over that balcony to avoid that pitting of the water just falling into that balcony. There's also I think we can see it. Sorry, I've got too many screens here. We do have some cracking of the limestone beams. We do need to replace, I think we're replacing 2 limestone beams those are structurally deficient. They're not going to fall over today, but they are something that we definitely, when this thing comes back up and has people in it, we want to make sure this is structurally safe. So that is in our recommendations to replace those. We are recommending the replacement be with precast beams as opposed to limestone beams. Precast is a much more sound engineering technology than a piece of stone. We can make it look very, very, very similar. We have done this in other historic projects where we use precast as opposed to limestone. You basically can't tell the difference from the exterior, but it's much more reliable as far as a structural perspective. In the interior, up on the 3rd floor, sixth floor, which I have my picture behind me. This is in the observation area. There's a bit of, I called it uncomfortableness when I was walking up there. It seems like you feel like the floor is kind of tilting. So we actually did some investigation in there. We actually took out some ceiling, looked to see what the structure looks like to determine, hey, is this thing gonna fall down? And we did not find any evidence of structural deficiency. It actually looks like there was a repair in some state. We don't know when. It's impossible to tell when, but definitely since 1908, there was a repair for some kind of structure. We were assuming structural deficiency previously. This is just something that wasn't fixed at that time, is what we're looking at. So there will be some more superficial type of repair to make sure that that uncomfortableness of feeling this tilting is not there anymore. Oh, went too far again. Sorry, I keep doing that. Mechanically, mechanical systems, it's got to be heated. We want it cooled. When we were there in July, it was a hot day. It was tough, and without having that cooling in there, going up and down those stairs was not fun. I'll tell you that right now. So we'll start with heating, though. Heating, of course, is important. This is a pretty the heating system there definitely needs to be replaced. Appears to have been installed in 1990. It's not high efficiency, absolutely not. We are recommending it be replaced with high efficiency propane type condensing type boiler. We will need a propane tank, but that can be buried outside. We do not need to have that be visible. So that is how we're. Oh, I'm so sorry. As far as what you see in each room, we have these heat pumps. Basically, if you go to any hotel room, this is the kind of thing that's in the Pagoda, and they're very typical. I did just get an email back from the city because we're given some options in our study, and we do have that answer that this is how we're going to replace it in kind. And we're going to go ahead and reuse these pipings there. So that actually saves some costs. If we flush it out and reuse it, it's perfectly fine. The piping is in good condition as far as we can tell. Regarding the cooling system, and this is something Jim, I don't know, I probably picked up on it, no one else did. He had a little box on his one overview there that had this mechanical unit in there. So we will definitely need to have coordination between the two aspects of this project. We are recommending this be replaced. We will have to figure out where do we put that in relation to the wall as it's being repaired, as they're being rebuilt as far as the walls. But do we maybe put this somewhere else? But that's details you guys don't really need to worry yourselves about. Oops. This is what I was talking about alternates. I will skip that. I just got that email yesterday, so we didn't get a chance to update our slides. So plumbing systems, this kind of relates back to the mostly with the restrooms that I talked about. Plumbing is not going to be an extensive repair for this project. We do need some replacement just for maintenance, typical maintenance type of things with a water heater. In our homes, we all know water heaters go after 10 years. It's the same in any kind of commercial building. They last a little longer, but they still need to be replaced on a regular basis. Backflow preventer, that needs to be replaced, and then the oil storage tanks. That's dependent on the type of system we use. If we use the propane, then we don't need the oil storage tanks. So we'll be figuring that out. And then we are recommending to replace all the plumbing fixtures with water efficient units in this building. Fire protection, it is a sprinklered building, which is good. And I think I went too far again. Gosh, I am not doing well. I apologize for that. In the basement, there's also an employee toilet and wash sink. We are recommending that be replaced. First floor prep area, again, with the kitchen aspect of it. If we're keeping a kitchen aspect, then we would recommend that the sink and the hand wash sink be replaced. There is a kitchenette area, small kitchenette area on the second floor. Again, if that's going to stay as a kitchenette area, we would replace those. And then third floor bathrooms. I think we have a picture of those, but actually we do have the one on the bottom here. This is in the bathroom on the third floor. We got a janitor's closet mop sink in there. So we have an idea of how to fix that and not have it in the bathroom. So I think that would be a good feature to not have. All right, so now I can go to fire protection. So as I said, it is a wet sprinkler system already. There is a fire pump that is down the road a little bit. Good condition, no issues with the fire pump that we saw. It's been well maintained. I think it's only about 10 years old. So that's great. Those things can last 50 years. So we don't have any recommendations there. Our recommendations for fire protection are pretty minor. We've got a few areas where in design, you don't want to block heads. Safety first. Got to make sure that this is a safe building. So a few areas where we need to make those improvements. A few areas where the heads were somehow removed. So we want to make sure that we get those back in there. So again, very minor. Electrical. Sure, everyone's been waiting to hear about the lights and what are we going to do with the lights? I'm getting there, I promise. The power distribution system, this is how we get the power there. That's all that means. We really didn't see any issues with it, but there are stored materials there. That's not allowed per code. So we want to make sure that that gets remedied. Some other minor things. We've got some wireways. We got exposed wires. It's not per code. We've got some areas where the cabling are going through holes in the wall with no kind of water sealant, or water tightness. So definitely want to try to get those repaired. Starting with the lighting system here, going interior first, there are some needs to replace lighting. We actually are recommending, I believe, to replace all of the lighting throughout the building with LED more efficient lighting. So that's just a couple of pictures of the types. We're certainly amenable to putting similar lights, lantern fixtures or something else to highlight certain areas. That'll be in coordination with the city as to design and what they kind of look. And it depends on how flexible the space we want. We don't want to put lanterns up in the middle of an area that aren't really there for a purpose. So we want to be smart with where we put things. Fifth and sixth floors, again, just replaced with LED type of technology. And on the exterior, bottom up, everyone's been waiting, I know, for the, what are we doing up on the lights? There are some at the bottom level. Again, safety, we want to make sure this is a lit, safe space for people. And we are recommending that they be replaced on the outside as well. There's a few that just needs to have them, they need to be retrofit because we want to keep the look again historically. So we're going to retrofit them with LED. Here, drum roll. Okay. Roofing, the LED lighting, everyone knows about the Pagoda. We do recommend that it be replaced. We're looking to put in a full custom design system, LED modules with all new wiring. And what we're going to be able to do here is have the programmable. We'll be able to do whatever colors you want at any time, make them pastels for springtime or make them fall colors in the fall. On Christmas Eve, of course, we'll have be able to do our flashing and our reds and greens and whatever we want to do. That is a recommendation. Now back to the boring stuff. Emergency lighting, that needs to be all replaced. Definitely needs to be throughout. Oh, so that was the lighting. Also CCTV. We know that this is an area that is kind of remote, so we want to make sure that that's hooked up and is working. Some additional investigation, I mentioned hazardous materials. You may all be interested in what did we find. We did not find anything that we didn't really expect. We do assume there's some asbestos in there, but primarily the ceilings are not asbestos. This is not going to be a very intensive project to have to remove hazardous materials. There is certainly lead in the paint. Anything prior to 1970, 1980 really is going to have lead in the paint. So it's a concern. It's something we have to address, but it's not a primary thing. Asbestos is a little more significant. And it's not that there isn't any. It's just that we didn't find it nearly as much as I would have assumed in a building of this vintage. And we do have polychlorinated biphenyls. That's not also very typical in a structure of this age. So, but it is definitely able to be remedied. And I already touched on our 6th floor investigation there with the sloping floor, and we very surprisingly, honestly, we're happy to see that something was already repaired, and it looks like that we're not really in any kind of danger there. I do have just a few more slides. Probable cost. So I presented this in April to council. I believe it was April. We didn't have the investigations at that time with the, we didn't know the results of the hazardous materials. So this is updated for that. So that's what we're looking at as a construction cost for the building portion. That's our estimate. Yeah, so our next steps is to continue with design. Now that I have my answer on the mechanical stuff, we're ready to go. We're ready to rock and roll into design and put together construction documents. So Dave.
Stop sharing screens and I'll
Yes, sir.
pull us up.
I can figure it out. Nope, I don't want to do that. How do I stop share? There you go.
Okay.
Or do I get a mic?
Okay. Thank you very much, Robin. Thank you everyone for your interest today in the Pagoda. Again, my name is Mike Reinert, and I serve on the board of the Foundation for the Reading Pagoda. And I want to talk for a moment or two here about the results of a recent survey that provides some insight into the community's interest in the Pagoda's future. There was a total of 160 people responded. One of the first questions that was asked was, are you a resident of Berks County? 117 people, or 3/4 of the people responding are from Berks County. They're from right here. Another question was asked is, how often do you visit the Reading Pagoda? And over half the people, 79 people said at least once a year, 36 people said once a month, and there was even 8 people said once a week. Another question asked was, have you taken out-of-town guests to the Pagoda? 85% of the people, over 128 people, said yes. So they're not just visiting the Pagoda, they're bringing people with them to share their enthusiasm. Another question that was asked is, what are the top 3 activities at the pagoda? We all might have some ideas about what activities are, but the top 3 from the survey, and this is encouraging, 136 people said looking at the view. Another big response, 104 responses for taking photos, and another 88 for walking the grounds. And there was also 72 said to go inside when it's open. So people do like to go up and enjoy the view and get pictures and just to be there because it's such a beautiful place. Another question asked was, how long is your visit? Do people stay there a long time? Over half the people said they stay at least 30 to 45 minutes. Another 40 people said they spend at least an hour or more. So, you know, a lot of people do want to get there and invite people and stay there and enjoy it. The survey also asked for people to provide ideas on what they'd like to see in the pagoda and around it, what type of activities. And quite a few responses came in. I think it was over 50 responses. Some of the highlights were people want to see a museum or something that tells the history of the pagoda. Expanded opportunities for food, like a restaurant. More events, concerts, and festivals was mentioned. Expanded hours and merchandise. To be able to rent rooms for events. And have things like First Fridays, Third Thursdays, things like that. Other people suggested food trucks, cleaning up biking and walking trails, car shows, and cultural events. And yes, and yoga too. And yes, somebody did suggest that zip lines. I'm not sure about that one. I'm not sure if it would go from the pagoda over to Neversink, maybe. I don't know. Maybe that one isn't quite practical. But the idea is people have enthusiasm for the pagoda. And, you know, the people in Reading, Berks County care about the pagoda and, you know, want to see it open again and renovated and to be able to use it. The pagoda has become Reading's signature landmark, and its condition reflects on our communities. And we like to be a positive reflection, open and vibrant again to welcome current and future generations, Lord willing, and with everybody's help. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Marcia, I think we're going to come back to you, and I have a bunch of questions that people have been asking. One of them, I think there's a whole series of them about what could be done at the pagoda. What could it be used for? What are the plans for it? How do people get to weigh in on suggestions? How would they get that information to you?
Okay, so I think this is the starting point for the renovations. First of all, we've heard from our contractors what it's going to take, the lift it's going to take. So we want to make sure through the foundation that we can move ahead to engage the public in every way possible. So this is just the beginning of the dialogue. There's going to be many more events that are going to occur, both in person, virtually, that we're going to hear from the public. So the first step is, of course, for the wall work to begin. In order for that to happen, and the contractor said that, the site's going to need to be cordoned off. We're going to need to get the walls done. And as the walls are being worked on, we then can take the time for the public input to what we do with the interior work. The foundation has been very proactive in working together with the city of Reading to say that we need to have a strong establishment of funding for this whole project. If you look at the different estimates that were given, we're looking at about $10 million from the walls to the interior to have everything ready to be reopened. So to that extent, the city of Reading is setting aside ARPA money, which will be brought before City Council on Monday as an introduction of an ordinance of $3 million of ARPA funding. The foundation, which is a 501(c), has also been putting seed money into a giving account that's set up through the Berks County Community Foundation. I'll be putting that link into the chat room in a minute. So the foundation is setting aside $100,000. Interestingly enough, $36,000 of that $100,000 has come from the Pennies for the Pagoda, which years ago was a fund that was set up for children across the county that they donated money through penny jars all across our schools. We know we want to revitalize that same kind of concept because we know from the grassroots level, from our children, through families, through large donors, we have the potential to be able to raise that $10 million. So I'm going to be putting that link in the chat room. The foundation has made that go live this morning. When I say the foundation, the Berks County Community Foundation.
Okay, and we will make sure everybody gets a copy of that.
But what I think is important is the ongoing dialogue through, Crystal Sites is on here, through Berks County visitors, through all our partners on the mountain, through the Mount Penn Preserve. All of us have to be part of this, because the tipping point right now is if we don't do the work that's needed, the future of the pagoda would be dim. So we're at the point now that, yes, we're going to invest. We know that everyone's interested in it. We know you all have some really creative ideas of what can happen. All of that has to be part of the dialogue. So I want to thank the Berks Alliance for making this beginning dialogue starting, and I'm really excited for what we move on. And as I've said to everyone, the pagoda is near and dear to us. For me, I see the pagoda every night from my window. It's my backyard, and I know it's all our backyards. It's all our hope. So thank you for the time, and
Sure.
all the questions that have been asked, we will have to answer them online. I don't know that we have time at this point, Dave, to go through all the questions.
We can probably stay another couple minutes, but we don't want to stay much longer than that. I will prepare a list of questions that I'll send to you, and we'll send your responses out to everybody who registered for this event. So we can do that. Is there any interest in addressing parking in the area? That's one of the questions that came up.
Well, and I think that's a really good question. So we do have some limited parking around the pagoda, but we also know you're not going to be able to interior have a lot of people in the building. There's just some fire limits as far as the number, but we want to make use of the outdoor space, which is spectacular views. There was a Pagoda Fest last year, which was a good example. There's other events, and we want to share with our partner on the mountain, a Pagoda Skyline with the fire tower, that's another place that parking can occur. So a lot of it is collaborative planning to make the best use of all the assets on the mountain.
And that idea of collaboration, I think, was important. It was both, Robin mentioned that you don't do one without the other. You need to coordinate them. Is there any possibility of other things being developed on Skyline Drive that could be used, connected to the pagoda, that could be used for events and activities?
Well, I think that's part of our planning and our dialogue. We do have space. We also, if you look at the mountain, we have other things on the other side. Eagleman's Park, that pavilion has just been restored. We have some dining establishments on the mountain, the Reading Liederkranz, Stokesay Castle. So there's all these different opportunities. If you look at it in the mountain, just not looking at the pagoda itself, but look at the whole idea of this mountain is a real asset. And if you travel around the country, you'll see that there's probably not very many locations that have so many assets that are so closely linked together.
Could you repeat again how much it's going to cost to do all this work, and when does it start?
Okay, so if you put together both projects, it's an estimate of about $10 million. When it starts is when we have enough funding set aside to be able to start with first the wall project. And we know that the city, the money it has set aside through the ARPA money isn't sufficient. So we're going to need to look at other partners with state and county government. And of course, because it's on the National Historic Registry, there's a real opportunity for grant funding to also come to fruition. So we want to look at all of that, but the community investment is also going to be important. So as we monitor what money is available, that will really be the key point to when the project can start.
So we're launching the next century of the pagoda.
Exactly. And to thank Mr. Whitman for the legacy that he left us. And again, nothing in this whole country is as unique as what we have in our own backyard.
And with that, I think we should wrap this up. We will share the video with everybody. We will share all the questions. And thank you. A lot of interesting questions that people had here. We'll share those with Marcia and the team. And then when we get responses back from them, we'll share those back with everybody who registers for the program. This is an interesting, challenging, but interesting opportunity for Reading, for Berks County. And we really appreciate your efforts, your work to do this. So thank you, Marcia. Thank you, team.
And I
And
also
thank you,
want to
everybody,
thank
for
the
joining us.
people from the foundation that are on, Joey Miranda, Mike Reiner, Donna Reed, Suzanne Cody, we have Bill Ulrich. So we have a real good, strong team on our foundation that are going to make things work as we move ahead.
Great. Thank you. And I want to remind people that we have a Berks Alliance Community Forum next week on sustainability. We're going to focus on the city's plans and how they're incorporating sustainability into their strategic planning. And we also have representatives from two businesses, Enersys and Penske, who are going to talk about how they've incorporated the concepts of sustainability. This is an issue of sustainability as well. How do we sustain the history and legacy of Berks County in the city of Reading? So thank you, everybody, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thanks.